Podcast. I am Casey Coggins, and I'm always joined with Alvin Hebert.
Tip it off.
And Andrew Lara.
Hello.
Yes, we are tipping off the NBA season.
We're back.
Yeah, we're halfway
Wheels
through
are
the
rolling.
first quarter. And breaking news, Gordon Hayward has not broken his leg.
God, why would you put that in the
air? Hey, he's made it.
Why would you?
He's made it 30 seconds longer than he did last season.
Luckily, there's wood in here. Yes. Knock on it.
So we do have the Sixers-Celtics game going. And it's just the beginning of what's going to be an odd season. Like, the end is going to be the same thing that it's been the last, 3 of the last 4 years, is Golden State holding the title, assuming everything breaks right the way it has the last 4 years. But until we get to that point, we have a shit ton of storylines from what's Kawhi going to look like in Toronto, what the hell is going on in Minnesota.
LeBron with the Lakers.
LeBron and I was saving that for last.
Get to the point already. I know. Rule of 3.
Well, I was gonna take it to like 15 different things to just highlight.
We got so many roster changes.
Just highlight how crazy it's going to be.
This is probably the most hype offseason.
We could have, the most mid-season trades ever, just because unhappy superstars and teams needing to try to tank to get a pick and go forward with their
Atlanta.
team. So, think of a team like Memphis, who was so good for so long, but they didn't have enough to get over the hump, and now their two best players are in their 30s.
About to be done for the year already.
And it probably, yeah. I mean, they made it longer than Gordon Hayward did, at least last year. But, what's going to happen with Marc Gasol? What's going to happen with Mike Conley? If they're bad, why not try to trade those pieces to teams that need them, who are contending, and try to get assets back and do what every other bad team does? So it's just storyline on top of storyline, and that's why we love the NBA, is other than the fact that we just love basketball. So this is our season preview show where we go through our playoff predictions for East and West.
Ooh.
We'll go through our awards for MVP, Coach of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year, and Most Improved Player.
Let's not forget special guest E40 in the house. Ooh.
Oh, yeah. That's all he's here for, is to just make that one sound effect when something either stupid is said.
Every block comes with the ooh. That's on my E right there.
So we're also going to talk Spurs, which we do often at this podcast. So we'll go through playoffs and awards, and then we'll kind of give a Spurs season preview. So let's just go right off the top and get into playoff predictions, and we'll touch on some of the teams that we picked, why we picked them there, and all that. So in the Eastern Conference, since we have the Eastern Conference game on right now, Andrew, lead off. Who's your number 1 seed?
Number 1 seed, I got Boston. I mean,
yeah,
you don't really have to say much.
Same here.
It's like watching the Red Sox.
Anybody other than Boston is number 1 right now?
No, I mean, that's just a known given. I'm surprised you would have had the Bulls. It's not the 90s.
No, the Bulls are doing what Memphis might do. The Bulls are growing, and the Bulls could be a I
still think they're
They made a move in the right direction, getting rid of Joakim Noah.
Oh, you mean the Knicks got rid of Joakim Noah?
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they made the move in the right direction.
They made
3 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
The shell of what used to be known as Joakim Noah.
Fall off.
Now we can start calling him the son of Yannick Noah again, because he's not Joakim anymore. Well, so the top three in the East, I think, will probably all have the same in some order, because there are, I think, a top three, and then 4 and 5 are going to be interesting, and then the rest of the East is going to be hot garbage.
Just throw a dart.
Yeah.
I've got it pretty set up to 6. Now 7 and 8 is what I had problems with.
Well, so getting an 8, it wasn't hard, but I think the
team that's going to make
the
8.
6, 7, and 8 team might be like 32 and 50. That's just.
I think the East has 6 solid good teams.
If you're putting Miami or Washington in there,
not Miami. I do
Let's
have
put
Washington.
Washington, yes.
Oh, yeah.
See, because I have Miami, we'll get there above Washington, because I don't think Washington did anything to improve their roster, and Miami did, and they have a stable organization, and that goes a long way as far as winning games goes, and they're also trying to,
What moves did Miami make?
Sign back D-Wade for his last year.
What real moves did they make?
They had a young team. They had a younger team than Washington, and they just got a year older. So they still have Justice Winslow. Josh Richardson is supposed to take the next step. He's somebody who we would be able to look at as a most improved player, possibly. Goran Dragic is still there. If Hassan Whiteside starts carrying a little bit more, he's still there.
That's a big asterisk right there.
They have Kelly Olynyk still. So they're a talented team, and I think they pushed Philly to 7 games.
I think it was 6.
Yeah, they at least won a couple games against Philly. So, getting to the top seeds and how I think there's a clear-cut top 3. Depending on how things go the whole season, I don't think that it would be weird to see any of the next 2 teams that I'm pretty sure we have in that number 1 spot, especially the team that I have number 2 is Toronto.
You think Kawhi's...
If Kawhi, I would hope Kawhi realizes how important this year is for him.
I think it's going to be hard for him to adjust between going from an actual system to the cold.
Yeah. But
no.
To Kyle Lowry.
You spend 41 games in Toronto. You're traveling the rest. It's not like he's playing, outside in the cold the entire time.
It's just an adjustment. It's just
It'll be an adjustment, but it's not like he played with the Spurs last year.
But at the same time, last year before he sat out everything, he had.
So
there was talks of MVP.
Right. Yeah.
That's not going to happen this year.
He was back-to-back runner up to MVP.
That's the video.
So. Gordon Hayward video about his comeback.
League of Legends.
He is a legend.
Toronto had a great young nucleus that they're trying to develop, and then they pretty much swap DeMar DeRozan for Kawhi Leonard, and they add Danny Green to the rotation. So we know that defensively they're going to be, they could be a top 5 defense in the league, and with the talent that they have with Siakam, another year with him, with OG, another year with him, Kyle Lowry, Danny, Fred Van Vliet, like Norman Powell showed some signs last year. CJ Wright has been somebody who can score off of the bench. Serge Ibaka and Jonas Valanciunas is still there. So, their team is... They were the number 1 seed last year. Now, granted, Boston was dealing with their injuries and all that, but they were still the number 1 seed in the East last year, and they traded up pretty much. So they got better, and they were the number 1 seed last year. So,
I just don't see him hitting his marks right away, because it's your best player is going to be new to this.
I don't think their offense is going to need to hit its stride until January. I think they'll be able to coast to a top 3 record in the East by continuously winning games, with Kawhi figuring out where he fits offensively, because we know what his best skill is, and it's not offense.
Right.
So
my thing is, how would he handle it when he's struggling and the media is blowing it up?
Because he is in a bigger
market. There
ain't
no media in Toronto.
That's all there is. That's like the Raptors are all they care about.
That's all
Toronto.
they're going to talk about in Toronto.
Ain't no media in Toronto.
Like Toronto is
no TVs in Canada.
I think the 5th largest market in the NBA, behind like Dallas.
Looks like a whole country.
Yeah, behind like Dallas, Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York. Like, so, I mean,
it's actually really surprising with being how they go parallel to hockey season.
They do have, a big hockey following, especially with the Maple Leafs there. But
Canadian loves hockey.
The Raptors, I mean, a Canadian team hasn't won the Stanley Cup in like 27 years.
Because America's better, but it's still the fact that the Canadian loves hockey.
But it's still they're gonna. Not only is the American national media going to have eyes on what the Kawhi situation's like, because of how bad it was last year and all the turmoil, he has to prove himself not only to this country, but also to that country.
And to Drake.
Yeah, exactly. Who can get him his...
Drake has a losing record, if you didn't know.
His Jordan sponsorship back.
Come back to the jump in.
So Toronto has a lot to... Like, Kawhi has a lot to prove this year, which would hopefully mean that he's going to be driven to make Toronto the best possible team they can be. Whether he stays there after this year is for a different podcast later on down the line.
If you're Kawhi and you already have it in your head that you want to go to the Clippers, do you try this season?
You got to.
You don't have to.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to at least show that you can play.
Yeah, because
but you can go like what was it?
You got it.
Braun his first year in Miami in the playoffs.
You got it.
I'm here.
You got his.
But
first,
I'm not.
His first year in Miami, he was already still under contract for 3 more years. So, like, it's different here. You just wanted to take a jab at LeBron. I get that.
No, not at all. I'm just comparing the heart factor at the time. He wasn't there.
Especially with the last game
I think
in the playoffs against Boston when they stomped them in 5 games or something like that.
See, that's a different thing. But see, there's still the rumor mill going on that LeBron knew that he was leaving Cleveland to go to Miami from 2008. So he knew the next 2 years, if Cleveland didn't do anything, that after his contract was up in 2010, he was leaving.
Well, yeah, it was all planned up until Melo took that contract with the Knicks.
When he got traded to the Knicks and
then signed the extension.
But so it was. He knew he was leaving, and he knew Miami was going to offer him a contract. See, that's the thing though, is if I'm Kawhi and I know the Clippers are going to offer me a contract, one, that's what the hell is the word? Tampering by the Clippers, because they would have had to tell Kawhi, hey, we're going to offer you this contract at the end of the season. So one, that's tampering, gets them.
But that's the organization. The organization, players can do whatever they want.
Right. So Kawhi can't possibly know if the Clippers are going to offer him. He can assume that they're going to offer him. So if he doesn't try and he doesn't,
him and Lou Will probably text you, but I got you.
But if he doesn't show that he's the Kawhi, they might be like, no, we're going to give you like 2-year $40 million, and like then if he wants to take that, he gets to take that, and he doesn't ever get to the cap that he wants to as far as contracts goes. Because all of the guys like Kevin Durant, LeBron James, who started taking these, 2-year, $20 million player option things where they can go in and out and leave when they want to and all that, they had already signed a supermax, like $100 million contract. LeBron already made $100 million off of Nike.
Well, Brown was doing it because he knew what was going on with the whole salary cap. He knew when the jumps were. He knew when they were going to come down.
Well, he knew that, but he had also already made all the big money that he could have. So if he wanted to, which he did, he took less. Kawhi hasn't gotten to that point yet. This was going to be Kawhi's big money contract, and he already dropped $50 million.
I dropped 80. I thought it was 82 mil he left on the table.
No. So far, he went from being able to make 219 to making 170. And then if he doesn't sign with Toronto, it drops another like 30 million.
Oh, okay.
So that's where the
that's where the 80.
That's where the 80 comes.
Yeah. So yeah, if he doesn't try, Jerry West is running the Clippers now. Like Jerry West understands basketball, better than anybody on the planet, pretty much. If he sees this guy who didn't want to play for the Spurs organization, and then he didn't want to play for Toronto, like why take this guy? Like why?
Well, he was forced. Wasn't forced to Toronto, but he just didn't want to be in San Antonio. So
right, exactly.
That's out of his hands.
But it's still him not playing consistent basketball for 2 years, coming off of an injury, with having injury problems previously. Like, why? If I'm the Clippers, if he doesn't bust his ass this year for Toronto and like show the MVP caliber player, like arguably the second best player in the world this year, like I'm passing on him, because the Clippers have their eyes on, the Jimmy Butlers of the world, who will bust his ass for you. He'll also bust your team's ass if they're not busting their ass.
My favorite basketball player right now, Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Buckets.
Right now. Jimmy Buckets. At the moment.
So this is all in tangent to, this is why I think Toronto's the 2 seed. Because Kawhi has to prove himself this year in the talent around him. And I'll miss Danny Green all season, because we could definitely use him in San Antonio. Alvin, who's your number 2 seed?
I got the Sixers as my number 2 seed.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, that's my 3. And as I said, there's a top 3. The reason I have Philly 3 is if everything stays, right down the middle, the way it is right now, their team is not as good as Toronto, and it's not as good as Boston. There are a lot of things that need to break right for Philly in order for them to take over Boston or Toronto to get a top 2 seed this year. I don't know what Markelle Fultz is going to look like.
That's a big question mark.
Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, you know what you're getting. You're getting a guy who won't shoot outside the paint, and you're getting a shit talker.
Well, he's more than a shit talker.
Who will possibly not be able to play, 35 minutes a game for 60 games. Like, you don't know you don't know health wise what you're going to get out of Joel Embiid. So if I'm the Sixers, as much as you'd love to just throw him out there like the star player he is for the star player minutes, and ride him like you would LeBron and James Harden and Russ and Durant, you don't want to have a foot thing come up again and then be back in the boat you were 2 years ago. So that's there are more question marks about that team than the other 2 that I have above them. That's why I have them at number 3. Who do y'all have at number 3, Alvin?
Toronto.
DC. No, I'm just playing. I got Toronto. So his eyes went, what?
So I think we're in agreement that it's one of those 3 is going to represent the Eastern Conference this year.
Yeah.
And I do feel like we might be in the same boat that we were last year, and we've been in the same boat the couple years prior, where it's like we kind of have a feeling that if everything goes according to plan, everybody knows what the NBA Finals are going to look like this year. Because out of those top 3 teams, there's one team that goes like 10 deep.
Yeah.
And another team goes 8 deep, with the 9th and 10th being all right players. And another team is banking on a bunch of 22-year-olds to lead them to the promised land. Because at least with Boston,
that's ageism.
You have...
That's sarcasm. That's ageism.
It is ageism, because I know how it works in the NBA. Like, go show me a time in an NBA Finals where you had a team being led by their 2 best players being like 21 and 22.
True.
Go show me a time. Because, I mean, LeBron...
If you see it this year, then what?
LeBron in 2007 was 23 years old. He was one person that led that team, and I've talked about this before. What he did in 2007 was absolutely ridiculous.
It was an aberration, though.
Ben Simmons is not LeBron James.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid is not LeBron James. And basketball in today's age in 2007, completely different basketball. Because that was the end of the Detroit Pistons era.
Yeah.
With Chauncey and Rip and Tayshaun and them. So I just don't think Phillies is there yet. Like, I think this year's another step forward. They could make the Eastern Conference Finals. But then like next year and the year after, when they get another piece there and they get another year under their belt, you can be looking at a team that could be like what Golden State was 5-6 years ago, with the drafting of Stephen Curry, the drafting of Klay Thompson, the drafting of Draymond Green, and then signing like Iguodala and Sean Livingston and the other guys to kind of meld, and drafting Harrison Barnes. And so you drafted right, you signed the right people, and you just kind of created this Goliath. So number 4 team, I have Indy. I think they just build on what they did last year and how good they were last year. Big question mark is, can Oladipo follow up the same year, and what's going on with the rest of the roster? Who do y'all have? Alvin, again, starting with you at number 4.
I got the Bucks, actually. I just think the Greek Freak is just
I was going in between those 2 teams for 4 and 5. Andrew?
I actually do have DC.
What?
Yeah.
He's a believer.
Nah.
You always did love John Wall.
I like John Wall, Bradley Beal, Kelly Oubre, fucking
what was that last name?
Kelly Oubre. Yeah.
Oubre.
Choked on my tongue. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
that's
sums it up.
That's a good 3 right there. Not including what's his name, Otto Porter.
Yeah, I mean they
have a good squad.
They've been probably the most disappointing team over the last 2 years, just because you like John Wall and Bradley Beal are right there with Steph and Clay and Dame and CJ as like best backcourts in the league. Talent wise, like they're right there with them. They can't shoot the ball the way the Splash Brothers do, and they can't even shoot the way that Dame and CJ do.
Well, yeah.
But Bradley, like, so John Wall, I think, took a step back last year.
Yeah.
But
that was also due to injuries.
They also got rid of
Gortat.
They brought in Dwight.
They brought in
that's a little
Dwight
question mark right there,
and the strained ass muscle.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Work on them glutes.
I mean, he's talking about shooting threes this year, I believe. Him and like Andre Drummond and all.
That's just dumb.
It's
dumb.
I think Hassan Whiteside was talking about shooting threes this season. Stick to your game. Like work around your strengths, not around your weaknesses.
You haven't even developed a good post-up game, and then you want to talk about shooting threes.
So. Yeah, I just don't see Washington clicking again. I don't think Scott Brooks is a good enough coach to have them all like
all that drama that went on last year that was breaking out inside the locker room.
Make them cohesive. Like you look at what he did in Oklahoma City, and he couldn't keep Russ and KD being cohesive. How is he going to make John Wall and Bradley Beal cohesive when they're not nearly as talented as KD and Russ? So it'll be interesting. I still think that they'll be in the mix. But I see them closer to like a 500 record this season, because I think Indy's going to be really good. Milwaukee, I think, like it would personally, it wouldn't surprise me to see Milwaukee jump up into the 3 seed. Like that's how good I think Milwaukee could be.
Mm-hmm. What moves did Milwaukee make in the offseason?
They got a competent coach.
They got rid of Jabari Parker.
Yeah, he went to Chicago, right?
Yeah.
So it for them it was pretty much getting Bud. They got Budenholzer as their coach.
Yeah.
They're operating at a faster pace. They're going to be shooting. They're actually going to be shooting threes this season, because the last season, like it was, they were like a team full of Ben Simmons. Let's see what I was just want to.
They actually got Bud as possibly as a coach of the year candidate.
Thon Maker. He's going to be. He's going to have another year, and he's kind of a big X factor just because of his size and his ability to shoot, and like he's kind of a Manute Bol type player.
Yeah.
Speaking of Manute Bol freshman year this year, going to be a possibly a top 10 pick going forward. They have Eric Bledsoe still. They have Malcolm Brogdon, who was Rookie of the Year, I think, when his rookie season. That did not do what I wanted it to do. Pull up there. Let's see what.
Chris Middleton also.
Yeah. I was gonna save him for last. They got Sterling Brown, who's supposed to be a budding superstar out of SMU. They drafted Dante DiVincenzo, the most outstanding player of the Final Four for Villanova. Tyler Zeller is one of their big men who, and John Henson, they're just athletic bigs who can run the floor, set screens, rebound.
Rim protectors.
Yeah, so they have... And they got Brooke Lopez too. So somebody, if they need to slow it down, they have somebody they can at least rely on if they need to slow it down. So I think the Bucks in the new system, with another year of the Greek Freak learning to play basketball, they could be really, really good. They could be a possible, like, you know what? I'm just going to throw some money down on them winning the Eastern Conference, because they very well could, because of how good Giannis can be, how good Chris Middleton might be in this system. So we'll see how it all develops through the season. So they're my 5 seed. Alvin, who was your 5 seed?
Mine, I got the Pacers.
Okay, so we flipped them, and you have Vindy there.
Yep.
We touched on them. It's going to be Oladipo or bust, I think, for them this season. Miles Turner has to bounce back from last year.
He's got that big extension?
Yeah, and he got into shape.
Yeah.
And then Sabonis, he has another year in the league.
Building off that great year that he had.
Yeah. So they're going to be... gonna be right there in the mix as far as like they're middle of the pack. They're not quite to the talent level of those top three, but I do think at this moment, trying to like predict it going forward, I had them at 4 above Milwaukee because I can at least see. I've at least seen what they can do with Milwaukee in the new system going forward. They're not going to look anything like the Bucks that you've seen in the last 2 years. I think they're more talented than Indiana is, but I think Indiana knows who they are, what they do when they do it well.
And Nate McMillan.
So we'll see how that plays out. Number 6, Andrew, lead off with you.
That's where I got Milwaukee.
That's where you got Milwaukee.
Yeah, that's where I got Milwaukee.
Alvin.
That's where I have the Wiz.
And I have Miami at the 6th seed. We've touched on them already. I just see Miami. They're stable. Spoelstra is the most underrated good coach in the league. I feel like every year people sleep on how good he is, and then like you look at the Miami record and you're like, oh, they're in playoff contention. Like they're the 5 seed right now. They're the 4 seed right now. Who do they even have on their roster? What is Spoelstra doing over there? And then later on in the year, you realize how good Spoelstra is as a coach. But when the season starts, you kind of just like, whatever. They're not the Heatles anymore.
Yeah.
But I do kind of think that they might be riding this is Dwayne Wade's last year wave. Mm-hmm. He knows that he doesn't need to play as much, and they're not going to be trying to. He's not going to get the Kobe Bryant treatment where he's going to get
tribute videos
60 shots in his final game. Like because they had nothing to play for other than like celebrating the career of Kobe Bryant. So for them, they actually have a good team, and I think they're just, again, kind of going to the Indiana-Milwaukee argument. That's how I have Miami-Washington is you know what you're getting from Miami. You know the players. They know their roles. They know the system. And I think Justice Winslow could take another step this year and show something more offensively. Defensively, he's played really well his first 2 years. Now this being his 3rd year, he needs to show the type of offensive playmaker he is, which I do think he is an offensive playmaker. So, as I said, that's why I have Washington 7. Alvin, who's your 7?
My 7, I actually have Chicago. I think this is where it's like a 4-team race, like 7, 8 seed, like 4 different teams. I think could.
Yeah, it was tough. Like I actually had a sneaking suspicion that you might see even like a team like Orlando kind of creep their way up just because of how young and talented they are, and they throw bodies at you like no other team does. Like similar to what Milwaukee looked like a couple years ago with Antetokounmpo coming up and Middleton and and like even Jabari, like when he was healthy, like they just have so many lengthy athletic guys, and Aaron Gordon and Jonathan Isaac and Mo Bamba that they can be really, really interesting. But yeah, the last 2 spots for the East get really tricky because you have some teams that have proven to be playoff teams, and they've made some roster moves to try to get them back there. Andrew, who was your 7th?
7, I got Miami. That's where I have them.
Okay. Now
8.
Follow up with 8. Do you have Chicago in?
No, I've got Charlotte.
That's the team. That's the team that I was like. That's a team that's had a lot of players make the playoffs before, and they've made some veteran roster moves, getting Parker, hiring James Borrego, and I think they drafted really well. And you're hoping you can get more out of Malik Monk than you have before. So Charlotte was one of the teams that I was like right on the cusp of putting them in there. Alvin, who's your 8?
Mine, I got the Brooklyn Nets, actually.
That was another team where you get another year of D'Angelo Russell. Hopefully he stays healthy all year. Spencer Dinwiddie is like the hot commodity on the block right now. Like everybody's like thinking of trading for him, and I've even seen people pick him as the 6th man of the year.
I mean, they were hot at the beginning of the season last season too.
And then
up until D'Angelo Russell got hurt.
Yeah.
the second year player, the center who just blocked the shit out of Blake Griffin, went to UT. Why can't I think of his name?
You got me there.
Yeah.
I don't care for the Nets that much.
Yeah, it looked like Blake was gonna do one of his like traditional Blake tomahawk smash the rim dunks.
Yeah.
Jared Allen came up and like almost blocked him with his elbow. It's like, hey, you're not there anymore. But yeah, I think Brooklyn does have an interesting team. But my 8 seed is actually Cleveland. I think a lot of people are
Kevin Love wave.
A lot. Not even that. I mean, I really like Colin Sexton. I still like George Hill and Jordan Clarkson as players. Rodney Hood. He didn't really find his groove until like late in the playoffs when they started playing him more and trusting him more.
Jump time.
I mean, he started games.
He's
3
got
and
really
4.
good junk time talent.
And he was a crucial player for Utah a couple years ago. I just think that given LeBron leaving and everybody being like, yeah, you're back down to the bottom of the barrel, that gives them something like meaningful to play for, like even when it comes to an 8th seed.
So you're giving them the playoffs. You're giving them the 8th seed off of heart.
I think they're just as talented as the 8 seeds that we've talked about. I think they're actually more talented than Brooklyn is. And Charlotte, I think, is slightly more talented, but with the new coach, new system.
How come Philly's got the Dos Equis guy as their head coach?
Brett Brown? Hey, some people say he's the most interesting man in the world.
I was looking at it, I was like, man, that's a Dos Equis dude.
But yeah, I think Cleveland is under the radar for a lot of people because they're like, they don't have LeBron. It's Tristan Thompson and the same guys just without LeBron, and look how bad they were last year. But I think not having LeBron frees up a lot of those guys to do things that they were actually intended to do on the basketball court.
Are we going to get the Kevin Love of Minnesota days?
No. Those days are behind him.
Yeah. Because from watching him, it kind of looks like he forgot his post-up game. Like he learned.
He forgot how to play.
He got good at shooting threes and played on the outside so much and did certain things that he didn't. He like when they did post him up, it wasn't Minnesota Kevin Love and on the block like 30-30 guy, like 30-20 guy, putting up Moses Malone numbers. So
I think that's the type of play they're going to need though in order.
But I think Jordan Clarkson is a really good player. I think they made moves last year that just did not fit LeBron. They just didn't. The moves they made they tried to do whatever they could to make it work, but it seemed like every player they got just didn't really fit with how LeBron was playing with that team. And Larry Nance, who's somebody I forgot to mention there, who just signed his extension with Cleveland too. So I think they have just as much talent as any other team that would be fighting for that 8th spot. And they're not a team that's trying to get into the lottery at all, and I think Colin Sexton's going to be. He has the chance of stealing the starting position from George Hill, and he has the chance of competing for Rookie of the Year award just because of the rest of the team and what he might need to do. But they're my 8 seed. So that's our Eastern Conference. We had some discrepancies, but do we see any other team other than Boston representing the East in the finals?
Nope.
No.
Like I could understand if come June we're watching like Philly there. I'd be like, oh yeah, Philly. I mean, Philly's good. Like Philly, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are great players.
I honestly don't think I wouldn't be surprised if Toronto is there.
Yeah, so it wouldn't surprise me to see either of those teams there. But it would be like if I was thinking Philly was going to make the NBA Finals this year, it would pretty much be me saying Boston's going to have the same injury-riddled season that they did last year. And they still almost made it to the NBA Finals if it wasn't for LeBron James.
They're just more talented and they got the better coach.
Definitely.
That's what it boils down to.
So, Western Conference, we probably only need to say one team because Golden State's winning the title again this year. Because last year they won the title pretty easily. And they looked all discombobulated the entire season because they had nothing to play for.
Even in the playoffs, they looked discombobulated.
Like Kevin Durant had gotten his ring the year before. They didn't change any pieces. They didn't have... They had already broken the wins in the season record. Like, they had nothing to play for last year other than to win a title.
They had players coaching.
Yeah. So this year, it's back to they have something to play for, and they have someone to play for. With the addition of Boogie and all the criticism he's gotten in his career, him coming off of an injury, not having been to the playoffs. I don't think he's played in a playoff game.
I don't think so.
Nobody calling him to sign him.
So best believe that those guys are all going to be like, all right, we're doing this for you, just like they did with KD, just like they did with Kevin Durant. That's how it's going to be. And so, while I think some teams could maybe take a couple games off of them in a series, if the Warriors weren't going to make it to the NBA Finals, last year was the year to do it against Houston. So we all have Golden State as our number 1 team in the West?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Consensus.
I feel like I'm going to have my number 2 team a little different from y'all.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, you're probably going to have, like, OKC.
No, absolutely
Lakers.
not. I have the Lakers. Of course. Because, one, I already liked all the pieces they had last year. I thought they had enough to be like a 6 seed last year because Brandon Ingram is going to be unbelievable. Kyle Kuzma, I thought, was the steal of the draft before the season started. I was on the Lonzo Ball train saying that he could have been the number 1 pick because I thought he was that good of a playmaker and a defender. He's not necessarily a scorer. I think where people are kind of getting on the Lakers' case is the signing of Lance Stevenson, Rajon Rondo, and JaVale McGee.
Yes.
But those guys are only going to have to play...
Don't forget Beasley.
Oh, yeah, and Michael Beasley. Again, those guys are only going to have to play like 16 minutes a night.
You think McGee's only
they're also going to be
minutes?
They're going to be fighting for that starting
He's
job.
their only true center.
Right. Which is going to get really weird. But they're going to be playing lineups of like Lonzo Ball, Lance Stevenson, Brandon Ingram, LeBron James, and Kyle Kuzma, where they don't have a true center. Because guess what? Best team in the league, you know what they do? They don't play a fucking true center. You know who they play at center? Draymond Green. Guess what position he plays? Not fucking center.
But then when they get Boogie Cousins back,
they're not going to fucking play him. You know when they're at their best? When they have Steph, Clay, KD, Draymond, and Iggy all fucking running around as fast as they possibly can. And you know what that creates? That creates open 30-footers for the greatest shooter ever. That creates open threes for Clay. That creates one-on-ones for KD. Like, that's when they're at their best. Boogie coming off an Achilles doesn't have to be their crunch time like lineup of death, because that's not him. That's the big question mark when he signed, when we talked about when he signed, was can he adjust to them? And I don't think that they're going to try to play him when it like the last 6 minutes of the game, because they're going to want to play the Steph, Clay, KD, Draymond, Iggy lineup, because Draymond's their best defender, Iguodala's their second best defender, and KD's their third best defender, which is going to get really weird later in the podcast. But also Iggy is a playmaker.
Clay.
Iggy is a playmaker, and so Clay can run off the screens, Steph can run off screens, KD can run off screens, and Iggy can be the ball handler. Draymond can be the ball handler. Boogie can be a ball handler, but I would treat Boogie like Tony Parker treated Tim Duncan. I'm the point guard, you're the center, give me the fucking ball. Like, you're not going to make these plays. Like, this isn't Sacramento. Like, if you want to win a championship, stop dribbling the fucking ball so much. Pass the ball to the playmakers and don't do your own shit. Shaq, as good as he was, guess what he didn't do? Bring the ball up. Like, look at him in Orlando, look at him at LSU.
We knew he couldn't handle the ball.
He could.
What?
He could until he got to like 300 pounds. But when he was in Orlando, he was the most dominant player since Wilt when he was in Orlando.
All right, but that was like when he was younger and like skinnier.
But even then,
more agile.
But even then, same thing with like Dwight Howard. Even then, while they were super athletic freaks that could do that, Shaq gave it to Penny. Let Penny be the playmaker. I'm going to go dominate down low. That's what Boogie needs to do. And that's not when the Warriors are at their best. So that's the thing with the Warriors is they're not going to... The Lakers aren't going to need to play JaVale McGee anytime other than DeMarcus Cousins is on the floor, and I don't think they're going to play DeMarcus Cousins 35 minutes a night. So you get to play around with this really weird roster that has the best player on the planet and guys going into their second year. Like, look at how well New Orleans played Golden State with Rajon. I think that's who they played, right? I'm not crazy thinking Golden State played New Orleans last year in the playoff.
Yeah, they did. That's when Rajon was getting those triple doubles.
Yeah, and Rajon was like holding his own for the most part against Steph. Well, think of having two Rajon Rondos, but because New Orleans had issues because Drew Holiday didn't look himself, and it got really weird. But Rajon Rondo next to Lonzo Ball is a damn good defensive backcourt for point guards. So I see a LeBron team that is going to play a different style than people are used to seeing LeBron play, with the type of talent that they do in Kyle Kuzma, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, and even the guys like Rondo we saw with a resurgent year last year. Lance Stevenson, something to prove. JaVale McGee was like, look at what he did in some of those playoff games. Like, one of the games against the Spurs, I think he had like 18 points and 10 rebounds. Yeah. So
always on Shaq in the food.
You take it with a grain of salt, all right? But they're probably going to win like 58 games this year, and that's why they're my 2 seed. Alvin, who's your 2 seed?
My 2 seed, I still got Houston up there.
Yep.
So they're my 3 seed, so we can chat about them. Why do y'all have them as the 2 seed? Because you think they're going to be just as good as last year, having lost Trevor Ariza and
they got Melo.
Oh my god!
Like, I know The only thing that
they lost their best defender and they got Melo back in exchange for him.
Yeah, which is
why would you? Yeah,
it's just more offensive power with the.
We don't need no defense right now.
That has
Melo's
his system
like
that's
a career 34% 3-point shooter.
I mean, that's fine. Like,
that's like saying
that's
we're gonna put DeMar DeRozan in Houston's offensive scheme because DeMar DeRozan wants to shoot twos, not threes.
It's fine because Dan Antoni's
Dan Antonio. Welcome to Dan Antonio.
Dan Antonio.
Same thing like Oubre.
I had a reason for that one.
His system is all about
threes and layups and free throws.
Shooting the ball. Just shoot the ball as quick as possible. They want the most shots in the game and keep going. Like, you miss a shot, whatever. That, like, they don't care about that.
Right. Well, so the reason they were the 2 seed last year, or the 1 seed last year, and the reason why they were so damn good and they were so close to beating Golden State, you know what they could do that D'Antoni teams haven't been able to do in the past? Play defense. They were able to at least lock down teams. And without Chris Paul, they were still able to hang in a game against Golden State in which they went 0 for 27 straight on three-pointers. So, yes, the offense failed them like it typically does for a D'Antoni team. Mm-hmm. You know what doesn't fail you? Defense. If you can guard people.
But why go on for defense when you could just get more offense?
Because offense isn't always going to be there. Steph doesn't go 10 for 13 on threes every night.
But what coach are we talking about here?
Yeah, this isn't Pop.
Right, I know. And that's why I have them as 3. It's like, yeah, I'm cool. Your offense is going to be awesome because you're going to run these ISO pick and rolls with James Harden and Chris Paul, and you're going to kick it to Melo, who's probably going to brick something off the backboard because he shot it too fast.
But you have the Lakers over Houston.
They're better.
They're not.
They're better.
They have no defense.
What?
Their defense is LeBron.
No,
did you not just hear his defense?
Did you not just hear Lonzo Ball and Rajon Rondo are great defensive point guards?
They're trash. Rajon Rondo, it's another year. We're gonna see how he does. It's to see if it's another year stat padding.
Stat padding.
This isn't 09 Rondo.
No, but this is a year after 16 Rondo. With fucking when he was putting those triple doubles up against Golden State. It's all trash time minutes where he's getting his assists. This is just
he doesn't need to be an assist guy for the Lakers.
Because one, you know why he's not going to be an assist guy for the Lakers? Because they're still going to have LeBron James as the main ball handler.
And trash ass JaVale McGee.
LeBron James is going to still be the main ball handler.
We're gonna be watching this season, and come April, the first 5 minutes of this podcast is me going to I'm gonna have it printed out. It's gonna be nice and big.
I guess the Lakers do suck.
It's going to have the playoff rankings, and it's going to have the Western Conference, and it's going to have Houston behind the Lakers.
When have you ever seen a system LeBron James?
That's when we tell you to turn it over.
Why would you want that?
What do you mean?
Why would you want a system with LeBron not being the main ball handler? Like
LeBron why when you have such a good point guard as Rajon Rondo?
Did you ever hear me say offensive talking Rondo? It's all defense when I talk Rondo.
No, but defense. I'm saying he's just going to go into the same system. They're going to make it tailor-made for LeBron James.
If you were to put them up head-to-head right now,
you got these players
Houston would
that are not. You got these players that are not.
No, they wouldn't.
You got these players that they don't play off the ball. Rajon Rondo does not play off the ball. He controls.
Have you watched them in the preseason?
Who?
The Lakers. Have you watched how they're playing in the preseason?
I don't care about.
Nobody cares about the fucking preseason. That's why the records are still 0-0.
See. The thing about watching like certain teams in the preseason, because I don't care. Spurs preseason, I don't fucking care. And I'm a Spurs fan. I don't fucking care about the Spurs in the preseason because I know when the season comes, I know what they're going to run. I know what they're going to look like, and I know who they have.
Until everybody's hurt.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get there. But for Los Angeles this year, it's like an entirely new team. It's an entirely new system. And it's with LeBron fucking James.
It's not even entirely
so
new team.
they ran the, I believe, second or third fastest pace offense in the preseason, where Brandon Ingram is actually getting a rebound, shaking off LeBron like he's a fucking pitcher, saying, I got this, and bringing the ball up and letting LeBron fill the lane. And that's not something you've ever seen before, because everybody, like every lineup that LeBron has played with is rebound. Here you go, LeBron. Like, think of how it was with Dwayne Wade and LeBron. Dwayne Wade could get the outlet. LeBron could get the outlet. They both know exactly what to do, and it usually ended up with LeBron dunking on somebody. Or getting open threes. The Lakers might not have the same three-point potential that Houston does, but
Yeah, you're over here talking about Melo. Who's going to shoot the three for the Lakers?
Brandon Ingram's a shooter.
Ingram.
He's not even
Kyle
a good
Kuzma.
3-point shooter.
He's a good shooter.
Not a 3-point shooter.
Better than Melo.
Not better than Harden.
Definitely not better than Harden. But I think, so as much as Houston likes to shoot the threes, they're relying on PJ Tucker. I'm not using Eric Gordon because Eric Gordon's a great 3-point shooter. But they're real. So outside of, James Harden and Eric Gordon, Chris Paul is a decent 3-point shooter.
He's better than Brandon Ingram at 3-point shooter.
Nah.
I don't know about that. I mean,
I've seen Chris Paul make clutch 3-point shots.
The problem is that I'm projecting how good Brandon Ingram is going to be.
But I know what Chris Paul could do.
Right. You knew what Chris Paul could do when he was not always hurt and when he was in his prime and like what he did last year. And guess what? He ended up getting hurt. I just don't... I think Houston's going to be good. I think they're going to win 55 games. But I think the Lakers are going to be better than a lot of people expect them to be, because they look at that roster and they're like, well, this roster doesn't make any fucking sense. But when has a LeBron James roster ever made fucking sense?
The Miami Heat roster?
The Heatles.
Which one? Because they didn't all make sense.
When they won their first championship, what do you mean?
The second year.
Yeah.
That's the one. That's exactly what I meant.
The third one,
But the third one was the same roster. It was the same roster.
It was the same roster a year older, and it took Shane Battier hitting 6 threes in Game 7 in the Spurs to miss free throws for them to win that championship.
The Ray Allen 3.
That roster was like it made sense, like the 2000 when they beat the Thunder. And when they beat the Spurs, back-to-back championships, those rosters made sense around LeBron. Somewhat. Because Dwayne Wade even still didn't really make sense because they play the same style, and that's why everybody's like, oh, well, Lonzo Ball and Rajon Rondo, they do the same thing that LeBron does. Like, okay.
Those two guys aren't Dwayne Wade.
Exactly.
True, but Brandon Ingram is going to be better than what that Dwayne Wade was. Because that was the tailspin of Dwayne Wade's career. That wasn't 07, 08, like not even 06 Dwayne Wade, where he was just a tornado on the court. Like Brandon Ingram and Kyle Kuzma are the new age of NBA player. They are the 6'8 to 6'10 ball handlers, shooters, defenders, playmakers that you need to be able to match up with teams. And there are less of those guys in the league, especially on Houston now, than there used to be. Like there are on the Lakers. They have more guys to throw at you than Houston does. The only problem is that Houston has I think the reason why y'all have Houston where y'all do, again, I have them at 3. I don't think they're going to be better. I think the Lakers are going to be better, but which pains me to say because, God, I hate Lakers fans.
I do too.
Yeah, I know. You're an LA hater.
Yeah. I grew up with a family of Laker fans.
But like it goes to the like you saw Houston do it last year. You saw Houston do it the year before. You know D'Antoni's system. You know the players they have. Where you're really just with the Lakers, as I've said before, it's a projection. You're really just kind of throwing a fucking die and hoping for 7. You're just.
And plus, how are they going to handle when they go through that month period where they're losing games and everything's going bad?
The same way that it always works on a LeBron James
but
team.
The media's blowing it up. These are young kids. These are not veterans that he was with Miami and all that, where they're just like shrugging it off, saying like it was just like a bad game or whatever and all that. So these are like young kids.
You do know that
pressure mounts up on them.
You do know that they're on the Lakers, and Brandon Ingram for the last 4 years has been called the next Kevin Durant. You do
Since
know
he
that
was drafted.
You do know that he's had pressure put on him, like Lonzo Ball. We know the pressure that's put on him. Like in the rest of the team, like they really only have the 3 young players that pressure might affect.
Like, it's a different pressure when you're playing with LeBron James, and multiple players that have played with LeBron James has mentioned that also.
LeBron James just spent 4 fucking years playing with J.R. Smith.
All right.
And you also just have LeBron James in one of the biggest markets in the NBA.
LeBron James is the biggest market in the NBA. It didn't matter where he was playing.
Exactly. So you take that and you put it in LA.
I'm telling you, high expectations. They're probably going to have fun for like the first month or 2.
They actually don't have expectations this year.
There's more cameras in that locker room
Talk
than there
about
were.
bringing back Showtime Lakers and all that stuff. Like, bro.
They were talking about that when they drafted Lonzo Ball. Not when they got LeBron James. They were talking about that last year, too. They're always going to talk about it.
And when they saw that not happening, what happened?
They gave them shit.
They faded out.
All that's all faded.
You know they were only like 3 games out of the playoffs, right?
It's fine. Now you got
and they just got the best player in the world.
Jumped all the way to number 2.
Right. Because they were relying on 2 rookies and a second-year player, and a third-year player to carry them. And Brook Lopez. Like, look at last year's roster for the Lakers, and look at this year's. And I forgot. They still have Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, too. So there's a 3-point shooter for you, and he's a 3-and-D guy. So he can play defense and shoot threes, 3-and-D. So the Lakers are going to be fine. And it goes to the same way that we saw Cleveland making the finals while we were watching their season just unravel, where me and you, Alvin, this was me and you, we were saying playoff LeBron. For about 4 months, we said playoff LeBron, and that's all we had to say. Well, just LeBron in the regular season with something to prove. We haven't really seen him have to prove something in the regular season since his first year in Cleveland and since his first year in Miami. Those are the only regular seasons he's had something to prove. Intruder alert. Well, that was a fun little tangent. Who do you have as your number 3 seed then, since it's not Houston?
I got Utah as my number 3.
Ooh, they're not going to be a number 3 seed. Andrew?
I have Utah.
So, all right, we're going to correlate this stuff. So, what y'all are saying is that a player gets a year older, a team gets a year older, and they're going to improve.
But they're under the same system.
Nothing changed but a year older, a year wiser.
But
you don't get the best player just showing up in your locker room. throwing a wrench in things.
Dude, do we know what just happened in the last 8 years? LeBron James showed up on teams and made it to the NBA Finals.
That was 8 years ago.
That's the last 8 years. Like, the entire last 8 years. Like,
yeah, those are another 8. You can't just put that same logic to every year. There's a point. He's past his prime already. He's gonna start the descent.
He just had his statistically best season of his career.
We got that.
And that was running a slow offense where he would walk half court.
Yes,
but now we're talking about how quick they're going to be running their offense in LA.
He doesn't have to be shouldering the load the same way he did in Cleveland.
Say what?
Like, his usage rate is going to go down.
But I don't see it.
I don't see that at all.
Because they're going to come down to the crunch time.
Y'all haven't watched.
All right,
y'all haven't watched preseason.
Oh, nobody gives a shit about preseason.
But that's them getting trained.
You want to talk about the Lakers roster, right?
Yes.
Utah's roster that didn't change much. They get back the reigning defensive player of the year, Rudy Gobert.
Yes.
You got
Ricky
Mitchell,
Rubio, Donovan Mitchell. Yes.
Donovan Mitchell, who in my eyes should have been rookie of the year last year.
No, but
I said my eyes. I said my eyes.
I understand.
And then you got Joe Ingles.
The Australian 3-point.
Dan Antoni.
They did drafted Allen, who
Yes, Grayson Allen, the most hated man in America. We got it.
in college sports, yeah. But he brings more toughness. He brings toughness to them. And he can shoot the three.
Okay.
You tell me he doesn't bring toughness to them?
I don't think he brings
Did you watch
toughness to them.
preseason?
I did watch preseason.
Okay, but so you don't see how he dogs people?
Man, he's a fake tough guy.
All right, Crowder. They get him for another year.
I like Jay Crowder.
And then Exum, he improved, so you're expecting another improvement this year.
He's not.
But you're expecting another improvement.
I don't think so.
Especially with Hood gone.
He's not. I don't think he'll ever be as good as Rodney Hood. And Rodney Hood, people are like, oh, he was
I don't even think Rodney Hood is that good.
Yeah, Dante Exum is a taller Rajon Rondo.
Okay, I'll take that.
I think he has that same kind of... He's not an offensive scorer. He's not the same playmaker. He's a good defender, which is what Quinn Snyder wants out of that team. But I don't think he's the guy that people thought he was going to be when he was drafted.
And they still have... It's Trey Burke, right?
Yeah, Trey Burke. Yeah, out of Michigan.
So, you're telling me that roster right there that is known to play defense, they were...
Yes.
Guess like they were the number two defense?
2 defense last year, number 1 defense the year before, yes.
Exactly. So, you're telling me with that proven...
Right. 1 offensive player, a lot of defenders.
With that
none of them are LeBron James.
It's fine. None of them are LeBron James. But
that's going from now until the rest of this podcast. When y'all give me shit for the Lakers, that's going to be my rebuttal. None of them are LeBron James.
Okay.
And until if I'm wrong, I will gladly accept that I was wrong. But until I see LeBron James fail, I'm going to assume that he's going to be great. And that's the assumption of this is my prediction is the Lakers are going to be a lot better than most people think, because do you know what their over under is in most places? It's like 45. It's like they're predicted to be like the 6th seed. Like that's people are putting that when people put them in the like top 4, they get the same reaction that I got. But I'm not worried about that because the Lakers are going to be damn good. Because I really like Brandon Ingram as a player.
I say the Lakers are going to be bad
because I think Brandon Ingram people are like mark my words. Brandon Ingram is going to average over 23 points a game this year.
Okay.
So it's
marked down.
Y'all both had Utah as your number 3, and I had Houston. We discussed them. Utah's my 4 seed. Kind of going with the same thing that I said about Houston's. Like, I'm in agreement with everything you said about Utah. I still think the Lakers are going to be better, because Utah, with another year of Donovan Mitchell, knowing their roles, understanding everything. I also think the West as a whole took a step back this year. I don't think it's as deep as it's been in years past. I don't think it's going to be like a couple of years ago where you had to win 50 games to make the playoffs. I think it's going to be where your 8 seed could be like a 41 team, which you haven't really seen much of, but like you kind of saw it last year where I believe the 8th seed was like 45-1 team. So I think a lot of teams in the West either stagnated, got worse, not many of them got better. So you're in that case you're hoping that the certain teams take their next step, and as long as Rudy Gobert stays healthy, Utah's the 4 seed. Like they're a top 4 seed. There's no reason they shouldn't be a top 4 seed with the type of team they have, the type of system they play, and the type of defense they have. So, Andrew, who's your number 4?
My number 4, we got Portland.
Portland. Okay.
I know they were the 3 seed last year, but they did nothing as far as roster goes.
Yeah.
And if we were doing like a NBA prediction throughout the season thing,
one of them is getting traded.
I could totally see one of them getting traded. I could see one of them being traded. So that to me I think is the most unlikely scenario that we've had out of our predictions so far. Because I hope y'all would agree that if the Lakers at 2, if y'all don't have to agree that they will, but if they got the 2 seed, y'all could just be like, oh yeah, LeBron. Like you could shrug your shoulders at it. LeBron. You could make an excuse that they got. Like I don't see how Portland's going to be a top 4 seed and repeat the same thing, because last year I had Damian Lillard as my black horse MVP, like dark horse MVP.
He was up there.
Racist.
He was up there for a while. Though.
My black stallion shit.
Racist.
But he was like my dark horse MVP at the beginning of the season, and he didn't start off hot, and then he made his push towards the end of the season. But James Harden did James Harden things, so I think he ended up like number 3 or 4 in voting. So
I think it was behind AD,
which would be 3, and then LeBron was 4. But I don't see him there. Number 4 is a push. Who's your 4?
I actually got OKC as my number 4. I think they got better by subtraction. Got rid of Carmelo.
Yeah.
Addition by subtraction.
Addition.
Yeah.
And,
I think they.
I think adding Schroeder as their 6th man. I think
it gives them like. Do y'all remember how they looked when they had Reggie Jackson?
Yeah.
They looked pretty damn good because they could give Westbrook a rest and like not fall apart completely.
Or you could play with Schroeder. You could actually play him with Westbrook, because then he could be your main ball handler, and then you got Russ. That's his natural position, just shooting the ball.
Yeah, but Schroeder's actually a better shooter than Russell Westbrook is. So you could invert everything. You could have Westbrook bring the ball up, and you could just interchange them, and that's that's the same way with like the Washington backcourt that we talked about and the Portland backcourt that we just brought up is I think that was a nice move. I think Steven Adams is a fucking monster.
And then getting back Paul George.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I feel like the Utah OKC thing, because they played in the first round in the playoffs as the 4 or 5 seed, like that's where they're locked in for the next couple of years is the 4 or 5 seed. Like I think it's going to like interchange. That's going to be a nice little rivalry for the next couple of years because I don't think either team is good enough. And I don't know where they can make a move to become good enough to compete for a title. But they're going to be in that position for the foreseeable future. The thing that scares me and the reason I think OKC is not going to be able to overcome it and they're going to stay in the 5 spot is Russell Westbrook missing time for injury. I don't remember how long he's going to be out, but I still think that they're expecting him to be out, another couple weeks because he just had his surgery, and when he comes back, he's not going to be the same player that we expect him to be. So, I still see them in the 5 spot, but I think Utah's going to be pretty good. I can see Utah being in that like 49-50 win range. And OKC being like 47-48 right there, right behind them. Andrew, who's your 5 seed?
OKC.
Pretty much same reason.
Yeah, I was just like...
Yeah. Alvin?
I actually have Lakers as my number 5 seed. Just because I feel...
I mean, it's completely understandable because we don't know what to expect. Like... I put them number 2, not because I know what to expect, but I'm expecting something out of them that other people aren't. That's the reason I have them as my number 2. So, like, anywhere they fall on this list, like...
My whole thing is
I'm not like, oh my god, I can't believe you put the, like...
The whole thing that when he was in the East with the Cavs and they went through their emotions or whatever... Like, all right, yeah, that was fine and dandy. You were still like a top 3 team in the East just because it's the East. The West is a different animal. Better teams. You got to have more wins in order to solidify.
You play the Western teams twice as much as you did in the East.
So I honestly think the top 5 teams in the East are just as good as the top 5 teams in the West minus Golden State. Like, Golden State is obviously the tier 1, but... Like, Boston's better than Houston. I actually think Toronto and Philly are better than Houston. They might not have better records, but I think if they were to play in the playoff series, I think those 3 teams would beat Houston. So that means I have those 3 teams above the rest of the West, other than like Golden State, and I personally think the Lakers are going to be right there with them as far as records go. Indy, Milwaukee, just like Utah, OKC for me. And it's I think the West is the weakest it's been in a long time.
Is it weak or is it just balanced?
I think it's more balanced now.
I think it's weak. I think shut up, Bixby. Sorry, my phone wanted to talk back to me. Because
it's not weak.
Because so Dallas, Phoenix, Sacramento, they're not going to be very good. The Spurs.
You think Dallas is not going to be very good?
I don't think they're going to be very, very good. They're going to be decent, but they're not going to be the like Dirk Mavs from 2000 to 2014. What teams am I? What team? Memphis, I don't think they're going to be very good. The Clippers are an interesting thing. So, I mean, like Minnesota, New Orleans, they're going to be right in the mix. It's going to be kind of like last year where there's going to be 5 or 6 bad teams in the West. And I think 6 through 10 are going to be like right around the 500 mark. And whoever can make it to the 500 mark will make the playoffs. Where in the East, like it has been, like you could totally see the 8 seed being like 39 and 43. So I don't see the West being as deep like as it has been like in the past. Yes, it's still better than the East, but it's not like you could probably take the 8th seed in the West, put them in the Eastern Conference, and they'd be a 2 seed. So that's the difference of this year than the West is like, yeah, you're putting all this talent in the West, but I don't think that just getting talent makes you a better team.
Unless it's LeBron James.
There are a few things like getting Kawhi Leonard. Yes, it makes you a better team, but like LeBron James is able to do so many different things. Like when the weakest part of his game is just shooting the ball, like which he's gotten better at in the past. He's the rare. He's the exception to the rule, because the rule states. This is an imaginary rule, by the way. That just because you're talented doesn't mean you have to have the right team around you. Like technically, even LeBron has to have the right team around him, right? He
needs 4 players to fill the court.
Right, but they have to be the right 4 players. They just can't be like some scrubs on the. I mean, that'll.
Oh.
some
like last year.
I just put Cleveland as my number 8 seed. They weren't the right players, but he still carried them to the finals. Like that's why
he'll complain about them in the media.
So he traded half the team at the deadline.
I also don't see that part of the LeBron circus going to LA because their president of basketball operations is like his second idol.
Yeah.
It's MJ and then Magic. Like the guy he most like resembles on the basketball court is Magic, and if Magic says we're not going to do that, LeBron, he actually has like
he gets checked.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
There's checks and balances. Finally, somewhere in this world, there are checks and balances.
Because if he were to leave LA, Jeannie Buss wouldn't write a fucking letter about how obsessed she is at him for leaving.
Right. Yeah. So
this is an actual organization.
But like Steph Curry, unbelievable player. If you were to swap out, and we've had this discussion before, if you were to swap out Steph Curry with Kemba Walker, granted, the Warriors wouldn't be as good as they are, but Steph wouldn't be making taking Charlotte to the playoffs. like that's the thing, is Steph is winning titles because he has Clay next to him, Draymond next to him, Iggy next to him, KD next to him. Like he's in the perfect system for his game, and they built a team around what all the individuals could do well, which means, because they have Clay, they can't commit as much to Steph, and because they have Steph, they can't commit as much to Clay, and because they have Kevin Durant, they can't commit as much to each other.
There's only one ball,
and so it's like they can move, they can play the system they do because you can't play defense against it as what compared to what you can do to other teams. So I still think the Lakers are going to because I know this started with the Lakers as being your 5 seed. It's like the Lakers are still going to be it's not as much it's the Lakers, it's that it's a LeBron led team to me. So that brings us to our number 6. And I think 6 through 8 is where we're going to get real funky with it. Andrew, lead off. Who's number 6?
I got San Antonio at 6.
Homerism. I'm all with it.
All with
it.
Which?
No, I mean it's still.
I'm
still a pop system. It's still a pop system. It's not even a homer pick. It's the fact that this is a pop system with 2 all-stars leading your team.
Right. and nobody else, because they're all just dropping like flies. Apparently, that's what's going on here. It's like Kawhi started an epidemic. Jesus Christ. Alvin, who's your 6?
I actually got Spurs 6.
Yeah, it's gonna be with DeJounte gone, with Derek White missing time. You know, the end of the Big 3 era. Not having any of them. Yeah, we still have Patty. We brought in Marco.
Still have Rudy Gay.
Rudy Gay. Like, I still think that, you know, they're going to be serviceable as a team, and like they're not going to be bottom feeders. But looking at the rest of the West and what they like, I actually just realized, and like, there are teams that I omitted from the playoffs that I could easily see making it in over San Antonio. And that's why I said, like, the 6 to 10, I think, in the West is like really a crapshoot.
It's going to come down to the last day once again.
Because my 6 is Denver. Because
of IT?
Jokic, no.
The Joker.
Jokic is a top 5 big man in the league. I'm a really big fan of Jamal Murray. I think Will Barton is phenomenal. Paul Millsap had a down year, but I think he'll bounce back, and they'll utilize him a little better. I think they have a better team than they did last year. And if Michael Porter Jr. plays and is healthy all season, if he was healthy all last season and there were no injury concerns, he would have been the number 1 overall pick. But since he had his health concerns, he slid. They were able to pick him up. So if he can... Again, we do these playoff predictions based on like teams being healthy. That's why I have Denver at 6, because with him being healthy, they're going to be a damn good team. That I think a lot of people like they could be like what Portland was last year, where they get on this like hot run from February to April and slide up into the top 4. Just because they're talented, and they have Hernan Gomez, who has another year under his belt. They're kind of like that typical Denver team, where they're a talented team, and you don't really watch much of them, and then all of a sudden the end of the season rolls around, and you look at the standings, and you're like, how the fuck how is Denver the 5 seed? Like they have. So I see Denver as number 6. On to 7. That's where I have Portland. I almost wanted to drop them completely out, but I like Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum too much. And I think those two are enough to get them into the playoffs. But I don't see them as a whole being a better team than the rest of them. And they're kind of an interesting team because they have some pieces where you don't know where the development is yet. Because they have Zach Collins, who should be taking another leap forward. I also believe they got the other guy out of Gonzaga too. And they have Nurkic. So they're a really interesting team because if they develop the way they should, then they're definitely a playoff team. Alvin, who's your number 7?
That's where I have the Nuggets at.
So we flipped there. Andrew, on to you.
I've got Anthony Davis, New Orleans at 7.
Just Anthony Davis. It's all right.
You can stop there. They still got Drew Holiday, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
They picked up Julius Randle. They have
Jalil.
Mirotic. Jalil's going to play like 2 minutes a game. but yeah, that's like looking at it. I was like, shit. I don't have New Orleans in my playoffs.
Neither do I.
Because we can get into this at some point later, but I don't know if Anthony Davis even ends this season in New Orleans. But Anthony Davis could win MVP this year. Like if New Orleans is a top 6 seed, like even if they make the playoffs, you could probably see him winning MVP because he has Drew Holiday and
nobody else.
like he has some decent players there too, because Mirotic isn't bad, and Julius Randle I think is a lot more underrated than he should be, and I think he's a really good player. I think this last season with the Lakers, he found who he was as a basketball player. He found that he's a more athletic Zach Randolph, and he should stick to that. So this will be a year where they need to find time for all these guys that they have to get on the court together, because you don't want Mirotic, Randall, and Anthony Davis on the court at the same time. So it's like, when are you going to play those guys? What's your rotation going to look like? And that's why I don't have New Orleans in the playoffs for me, because I don't know if they're going to be able to do that successfully. That was your 7 seed?
Yeah.
So on to your 8 seed. Follow it up, Andrew.
Well, I mean, you had him at 2. I had him at, what, 6?
5.
I got him at 8.
Okay, Alvin.
We don't have to talk about that.
We've done enough Laker talk for the rest of my life.
I've talked about the Lakers too much to even. But I got the Blazers as the 8 seed.
I thought they were your 7 seed or 6 seed.
No, my 6.
Oh, Spurs. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I have the Spurs as my 8 seed. I don't think they're going to be bad enough to miss the playoffs, and I don't think they're going to be good enough to like have them in their grasp for most of the season. This is going to be the weirdest year that I can remember being a Spurs fan. Because pretty much the first season that I can remember fully watching was like Tim Duncan's rookie season. And I mean, I remember watching games before that, but even then, like, you knew what you had because you had the Avery Johnsons, the David Robinsons, the Sean Elliott's, the Will Purdue's, and Dominic Wilkins. I remember that.
Antonio Daniels.
Yeah, so like you knew what you had as a Spurs fan. This is the first year where you really don't know what you have, other than like you have LaMarcus Aldridge coming off of his best year as a Spur, and you have DeMar DeRozan.
Pissed off DeMar DeRozan,
who has been, I think he's a 4-time All-Star. Helped lead Toronto to the best record in the East last year.
Franchise best record.
The all-time leading scorer in Toronto history. Like
his stats improved.
He's got all the records,
and he's 29.
Yeah.
So it's like we know we have those two guys, and we know we have Patty coming off the bench. And we know we have Rudy Gay.
Can't forget Rudy Gay.
But if you're relying on Rudy Gay at this point to make the play, like he shouldn't be the person you rely on all the time. Like if he's your third best player at this point, like you're not. It's going to be a struggle. And like Jakob Poeltl, I think he's going to be a star for us. Like he's going to fit the system so well. He's going to be a player.
The fact that he's so young,
he's going to be somebody who the Spurs have really never had. I mean, we had David Robinson and Tim Duncan, but they were the superstars of the team.
Mm-hmm.
They never really played with, other than each other, the glue big man. Like, the best big man that Tim played with was probably Thiago Splitter. Other than...
What about Alberto?
Thiago was better than Alberto. Rasho Nesterovic and like,
Boban.
Baines?
Thiago is better than all those guys.
Baines is like a fucking
I mean, in like
bull in a
so he
china
played.
shop.
He had the 1 year with LaMarcus, but LaMarcus doesn't do the things that Pirtle's there for.
Yeah.
Like Pirtle is
A center.
is Mason Plumlee and like Robin Lopez and these like Andrew Bogut type centers where it's like
Should have stopped
they
at the
don't
second one.
they don't hey Andrew Bogut like helped carve out a niche for Golden State.
He's an
By getting
NBA
hurt.
champion, okay?
By getting hurt.
Well, when he was healthy, they won a championship. When he got hurt, they lost in the playoffs. But he's somebody who can rim run, rim protect, rebound, do all the dirty work, do the Steven Adams type stuff. And if he scores 10 points in a game, you probably win that game. Either that or you were blown out by 30. But there's only one or two. You're either blown out or you win.
It's not a close game.
It's not a close game. Like you don't need Pirtle to come in and score, like be a 15 and 12 guy. Like you don't need that from him. You need him to be like a 6 and 14 guy with like a block and a half a game, because they still have Powell and like I've said a few times already in this episode of this podcast, the Spurs have the stable organization. They have an identity that all the players come in and it's like Pop is going to say, this is what you're going to do. Stick to doing that. Like that's that's why I still have the Spurs in the playoffs, because that beats a lot of teams in the NBA that like in this age. Like ball movement and defense will win 40 games.
Coaching matters in this league.
So
Yeah.
that's why they're my number 8 seed, just because without DeJounte, because he was supposed to take that next step and be that the secondary the primary ball handler, and then like he was supposed to feed off DeMar and like there was supposed to be good cohesiveness with the starting 5 this year. I mean, I probably even with everybody healthy, I probably wouldn't have bumped them over the 6th spot. But with those guys out, I still have them in the playoffs, but it's going to be a struggle. So that leads us into the awards. And before we get to the awards, we all had the same NBA Finals, Golden State, Boston.
Yep.
Yep.
If all healthy, yep.
And we all see
I thought you had Lakers in Boston.
No.
No, come on. That's crazy.
They're not that good.
That's crazy talk.
They're not that good. I mean, they might be able to take Golden State to like 7. And these are regular season records. This isn't talking playoffs, all right. So yeah, I think that's a consensus. The Boston thing could be a little interesting. I'm actually more intrigued to watch how the top of the Eastern Conference plays out than the Western Conference. So on to awards. MVP, Andrew.
Giannis.
Alvin.
AD.
And since I have them as the number 2 seed,
Of course,
LeBron's
yes,
the
of
MVP.
course, yes.
I think the last few years it's been like, let's give it to somebody not named LeBron, because he already has 3-4 MVPs already. And if the Lakers are the 2 seed, which means they win like right around 60 games, is probably because LeBron was phenomenal again. Where like Anthony Davis and Giannis were probably my next 2 choices.
Yeah, I was mulling over AD or Giannis.
Because if New Orleans makes the playoffs, Anthony Davis might win the scoring title and the rebounding crown, and the block title. Pretty much every award Anthony Davis would need to win for them to make the playoffs in my eyes. So like neither of those are bad choices, and I feel like with how the year plays out, with the Lakers getting the 2 seed, LeBron has to be LeBron. And it's going to make it Giannis and AD would have to do something tremendously special for them to steal it out of the Lakers' hand, winning 60 games. So, I have LeBron. Coach of the year, I kind of feel like we might all have the same person. But I mean, there's a lot of good teams there that things could slide and switch it around. Alvin, who's your coach of the year?
Quinn Snyder.
See, that's one of the guys that I thought about putting. Andrew,
Pop. Spurs make the playoffs with this roster. I'm gonna get coach of the year.
So the reason I went Brad Stevens is because they'll probably be the number 1 seed in the East, and he hasn't won Coach of the Year yet.
Because he hasn't, he needs to get one.
It's kind of like
I feel like he should have won last year.
It's like the Kobe MVP season. Kobe didn't have one, and instead of giving it to the guy who rightfully deserved it, Chris Paul, they gave it to Kobe Bryant. So that's when we introduce our new segment going forward. That's going to be one of my things. It's the 08 MVP. So yeah, Brad Stevens. With the record they're gonna have, he has to win it. It's like Dwayne Casey won it last year because Toronto stole the number 1 seed. And for Pop.
Now he doesn't even have an office to put the trophy in.
I feel like Pop kind of has that, like, well, I mean, we already call him the best coach in the league. Why do we have to give him the award for it too? So, rookie of the year, Andrew. Who do you got?
DeAndre
Ayton.
Alvin?
Luka Doncic.
Yeah, I went with Doncic too. And this one was, I feel, more intriguing than it might have been like before the draft, because like Doncic should have been the number 1 pick.
Yep.
Doncic is going to have the ball in his hands a lot this year, playing for a really good coach, whereas Ayton is playing for a first-time head coach and all sorts of crazy shit in the desert.
And the Suns needed a point guard.
But like the rookie of the year this year, unlike last year and unlike years past, is going to go to a player who like might have a bottom 5 record in the league, like just because they were that good as rookies. Because look at the rest of the rookies.
The Hawks.
Yeah, like Trae
Young and the Hawks.
Yeah, is a third guy that people are talking about being a rookie of the year candidate. But you have a guy like Michael Bridges or Mikal Bridges or Miles Bridges. Miles Bridges and Charlotte. Like if Charlotte's good and they do a lot better, probably because he was a really good rookie. But me not expecting those rookies to be on like playoff teams, to have the rookies on the playoff teams aren't going to have the impact that the rookies on the bad teams are going to have. And that's why, as much as I like Ayton and I've liked what I've seen from him so far, they still have Devin Booker, who's going to be taking the fair share of things, whereas Doncic is going to be the star of Dallas. And Dallas made that trade for a reason because they knew what they were going to get in Doncic. And that's why I have him there. Now let's go to Defensive Player of the Year. Andrew, who do you have?
I got Rudy Gobert going back to back.
Back to back.
I got Embiid.
So I went with Kevin Durant. One, because he made his statement about media won't give me that award because they hate me. Like,
oh, he's talking about the MVP.
Yeah, no, he was talking about the Defensive Player of the Year award.
Oh,
they won't give it to him because he's a hoe.
So the reason I think that they actually will give it to him this year is because
he cried about it.
Is because one, he cried about it, but two, he's going to prove he's going to want to prove.
He put the media on notice.
We understand how petty Kevin Durant is, right?
Yes,
like,
he thinks he's a normal person.
He's Queen Petty.
He thinks he's a normal person.
He really does.
But he
says, "Man, just because I'm a superstar don't mean I get special treatments."
Yeah, blog boys.
God, with them burner accounts.
But yeah, like, he's super petty and he's super emotional about these things. And I mean, all fairness to him, like, you're a human being. Like, yeah, if somebody's talking shit about you, get emotional about it. But also understand that you made the decision you did. Like your decision doesn't come without consequence.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna talk shit about you
because you a hoe.
So I think that he's that, like, again, Golden State has meaning to play this year for Boogie in the title sense, but you remember that the video of Draymond Green and Kevin Durant where he's like poking him in the chest and he's like speaking really fast? Like, that's going to be Draymond Green all season about Kevin Durant winning Defensive Player of the Year. Like, it's going to be like Kevin Durant trying to get Steph Curry Finals MVP, where, like, in Game 4 he like kept passing the ball to Steph so he could score all the points, but everybody was like, no, we saw what you did in Game 2. You won it. Like, doesn't matter. We don't forget that shit. So that's going to be how the year plays out. They're going to run their offense more through Steph. They're going to be trying to win for Boogie, and Kevin Durant's going to be aiming for Defensive Player of the Year. And that's why I gave it to him. So, Sixth Man of the Year, I went with Dennis Schroeder. This one was the toughest. This one was the toughest one for me to pick because Eric Gordon is probably the most important sixth man because he's given the most usage out of the sixth man.
Lou Williams.
But Lou Williams, the Clippers aren't going to be any good.
They're not going to need a sixth man. They're going to be down to
the Clippers could be good, but it's not. There's a difference of being the sixth man on a non-playoff team and the sixth man being an important sixth man on the top 3 seed in the West. But for Schroeder, I kind of was like, it goes to the Eric Gordon voter fatigue. Same thing with like Lou Williams and Jamal Crawford. You're like, well, I mean, it has been their role their entire career. Like, we can't. Manu, I think, got the award once.
Yeah.
They always try to find somebody new. Schroeder is going back to how it was a few years ago when they had Jeff Teague in Atlanta, where he's the sixth man. He's the backup point guard. And he's going to be able to come in and play the same style of play that the starter does so that they don't fall off. And I think he's going to be used more for a better team than he was in Atlanta. That's why he's my sixth man of the year. Alvin, your sixth man.
I got Marcus Smart.
Yeah. And I know who Andrew picked, so I'll get to my rebuttal on that.
Yeah.
Andrew?
I got Scary Terry.
And that's exactly why. I don't see a Celtic winning sixth man of the year because they have to be phenomenal. Like, they have to be, 18 to 20 points a game phenomenal to win sixth man on that team, because I could have said Jaylen Brown. Like, those are their next three guys off the bench is Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier, and Marcus Smart. And so I think with how balanced and deep Boston is, I don't think they're going to have to rely on a sixth man as much as, like, Oklahoma City's going to have to rely on Schroeder, and Houston's going to have to rely on Eric Gordon, and the Clippers are going to have to rely on Lou Williams, where Boston can just pretty much roll a ball onto the court, throw out 5 of the guys on their roster, and probably come up with a number 1 seed in the East, because that's how good they are this year. And that's why I think Boston is going to cannibalize all their awards because of how deep they are.
Like the same way that Houston, the Astros, with their pitching,
exactly. So that's why, I mean, they're good enough to win this award, and they have the role to win this award. But it's hard saying that one of those guys is going to do more for the team, because they all have their certain role. Like, Terry Rozier is the backup scoring point guard. Marcus Smart is the defensive, like, stalwart that comes in and plays this, like, bully ball defense. And then Jaylen Brown is their athletic, exciting, like, small forward backup. And you can put them in any lineup with any of the starters, and they just fill in seamlessly. So, last award is Most Improved Player. Andrew, I'll let you lead this one off.
Most Improved, I got D'Angelo Russell.
I like that.
He's going to be playing for that big extension coming up.
Yeah, and he has a lot to prove, because getting drafted number 2 overall by the Lakers and really not playing well.
Being told that you're the face of the franchise, and then being traded from that franchise.
For a new face of the franchise. In the same exact draft spot that you were, at the same exact position that you were. They pretty much said, we think Lonzo's better than you.
Yeah.
Well, offensively, Lonzo is not. Defensively, he is. But I'm the same way with Julius Randle as I am D'Angelo Russell. When D'Angelo Russell got drafted, Julius Randle was in his first year, I believe. It was one of the other two. Like, they got drafted back-to-back years by the Lakers. And I was having a conversation with Robert, and he was like, "Oh, they're going to be busts. They're going to be busts." And I was like, "No, they're going to be very good players in the NBA." And I was trying to explain to him how good they were going to be, and it took them a couple years. And I told him it was going to be a couple years.
Well, I mean, that's what happens when you interact with the pessimist.
Yeah, that's true. But D'Angelo Russell was off to an amazing start. I'm pretty sure he was averaging like 27 a game, and then he got hurt and missed like 4 months.
Yeah.
So I really like that pick from D'Angelo Russell. Alvin, your pick?
I was mulling over D'Angelo Russell or Julius Randle, but I'm gonna go with Julius Randle, just because I think he's gonna build off what he had at the end of the season, and just build it off, because you got
Anthony Davis is going to need a running mate.
Yeah.
And Mirotic, I think if Julius Randle is also kind of this pick to win sixth man, because right now he's lined up to be coming off the bench. And so it'll be, I think for him, like D'Angelo, we know with the Nets, D'Angelo Russell is their go-to guy. He's their guy, so he could have that Victor Oladipo season. And Julius Randle has a go-to guy on their team already, so we'll see how the dynamic is and what they do offensively and all that, how he fits into their system. I went to a team that I think is going to be a pretty good team where they don't necessarily have a go-to player and they need one. And I think it's this guy's year to be that player. And I've said Will Barton is going to be the most improved player for the Denver Nuggets because they need a wing player to play lockdown defense and score, and he's their guy. And I think he's 27 and he's right there in that role to be able to fill up the stat sheet and take home most improved player. So that wraps up the awards. We are a couple hours in pretty much of this podcast. I think we're like an hour and a half in. So I mean I was gonna go into a deeper dive on the Spurs, but I mean we kind of touched on the main points for the Spurs season.
Yeah.
It's gonna be relying heavily on DeMar and LaMarcus, with little hopes that Rudy has the same kind of season he had last year, and hope Derek White comes back soon, and it's one of those seasons where I personally wouldn't really mind if the Spurs just kind of had this awful season.
You want them to tank?
I don't want them to tank. No, I'm gonna be disappointed.
But if it's okay if they just don't show up a couple games.
Just be bad.
But it's tricky because you've watched this team be competitive for so long and make the playoffs so many years in a row, and you don't want to lose that streak because it's nice to be able to be the Spurs are going to make the playoffs.
It'd be nice to have Zion on your team next year, huh?
Exactly.
Now we get into.
I'm not saying you don't have to be bad, but I mean think about
RJ Barrett.
Yeah, think about that next draft class.
So I mean, I was already looking at mock drafts, and I'm already going through the next year's rookie class.
The way too early draft class.
Yeah, I'm already there. But I mean, we'll be there tomorrow night. Somebody
Some of us will be here.
Somebody decided that they didn't want to go.
Hey, work, bro. My bad.
But yeah, home opener, first game against the Drama Wolves.
And not so much Timber Pups anymore.
No, definitely not. Jimmy Butler's gonna put some hair on their chest. He's gonna go down like a shot of well tequila. All right. Well, this has been the Bench Warmers podcast. I'm Casey Coggins with Alvin Hebert.
Back at it.
And Andrew Lira.
See ya.
Go Spurs. Go. We are banned.